Welcome back to Lost Legacies. I'm Matt.
And I'm Sam.
First off, if I don't sound like Matt, it's okay. I'm not lying to you. I'm actually Matt. I was just a bit under the weather last week, and my voice isn't back 100% yet. Let's see what happens, Sam. What do we... Oh, yeah, we watched Lost.
Yes, wow, like that must have really taken it out of you.
I know, this week has been crazy. So we're talking about Season 2, Episode 6, Abandoned. The Rafties and the Tailies finally begin working together to save Sawyer's life. Meanwhile, there's trouble in paradise when Saeed refuses to believe that Shannon saw Walt. What an episode, dude.
Mm-hmm.
Here we are, only 6 episodes into Season 2, and we've lost another main cast member. Thoughts? Comments?
Well, okay. Hang on a second. Did we lose Shannon? She just got shot.
Dude,
we don't know if she's dead.
I don't know, man. You saw Saeed's face in that last shot.
I mean, yes, that's true. But you know, what if she just what if she's in shock? What if she's just in shock? And it's in that moment, you know, you look in there, like, I don't know. I refuse to believe it. I'm gonna live in blissful ignorance right now and just hope that no, she's not dead. Because I feel like now, finally, this was an episode where it was like, this is where Shannon finally starts taking off. She loses. It's the season 1 Game of Thrones Sansa thing where it's like she's snooty and stuck up, and then as time goes on in the series, she's gonna like become cool, full of agency, girl boss. And I thought this is where that's going to start. Like, it's finally starting to happen. Shannon's finally getting, you know, to that. And then she gets shot by Ana Lucia. But is she dead?
You know who you sound like right now?
Uh-oh. Who do I sound like right now?
Me, after the execution of Ned Stark. I was like, nah, Sean Bean's still around. You're like, you see the sword go through his neck. Nah, it just looked like that with the camera. You know what you're saying? It could be possible. It could be true. But I you know what? I mean, I think if everything lined up in a certain way, I don't know. I just don't know.
Yeah.
Maybe we'll find out next week. Who knows?
Maybe.
But it's interesting what you're talking about Shannon, because this was like a really good Shannon episode.
Mm-hmm.
It just sucks that it took this long to kind of get this side of her.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, man, I mean, I don't know. What are your thoughts? What did you think about this one?
Really good, stellar performances from virtually everyone who's in the episode, like giving it their all. You know, the Tailies do have this sense of like urgency.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like you can see the fear in them, and fear sort of guides their every decision. And it's so cool to see them sort of working. And then you have, you know, everybody who's on the raft just trying to adapt and trying to cope and being, you know, just like trying to face the situation, but they don't have all the pieces of the puzzle. They have different pieces. So that's great. You get the sort of C plot of Claire and Charlie and Locke. And I feel like we're at a point right now where it's like, this is no longer, I'm no longer seeing these people as actors. You're the character now. And now I'm getting to see these characters just interacting with each other. And it's refreshing to see. I don't know. It's just refreshing to see these characters just existing within the space. And it's like something as small as letting this other man hold a baby feels if not earth-shattering, it feels aggressive. So yeah, and then you just get to see Shannon, and Shannon's always been like a little bit of an enigma, because she very much is just the sort of like stuck up party girl in season 1, and she starts to shed that very slowly, and then her arc ends pretty grim. She loses her stepbrother and sort of cuts herself off from everything, and it's in the episode before the finale where Walt gives Vincent to her to look after. It's like the first time we see like a glimmer of hope.
Mm-hmm.
So it's cool to see this, to have this episode do a job of making and contextualizing Shannon's character, and we get to see these different sides of her. Quick question. In the very first flashback, when she gets to the hospital with her stepmom and they talk to the doctor about her father was killed in a car accident and they couldn't resuscitate him. Is this supposed to be the same accident that Jack ends up meeting his future wife?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Cool.
Because you saw Jack, right?
Yeah. He like really quickly like just brushed past like their doctor and like went down the hall. And I was like, hey, this is
also the episode we find out that her last name is Rutherford.
Mm-hmm.
Shannon Rutherford. And we find out in that scene, and that's the name of the guy Jack lets die. He chooses to save the woman instead of the guy.
Mm-hmm.
So, and we saw, what was that episode? That's episode 1.
Yeah,
that was the first episode of the season.
Yeah.
So Jack chose to save the woman over the other guy.
Mm-hmm.
Which is interesting because I don't know how hospitals work. I figure the doctor who makes the call would be the one to tell the family. I figure so. It should have been Jack, but I'm pretty sure she would remember Jack. So that's probably why they had another doctor. It. Behind the scenes wise, that's why they did it.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I don't know what city are they in.
That's a good question.
I think it's LA because like they don't mention it, but they would have had to mention it in the first season.
Mm-hmm.
Because Jack has to go get his dad. I think they mentioned it. Like,
mm-hmm.
he went from LA to Sydney to find his dad.
Yeah.
So that means he works at a hospital in LA.
Yeah.
So at some point, okay, so Boone and Shannon, it makes sense that they're in Los Angeles. They live the kind of Beverly Hills life,
Mm-hmm.
And there's a lot of talk this episode about her moving to New York and stuff, and now we know that. I don't think it really gets resolved. It looks because she seems like she's still going at the end of the episode. She just doesn't know how.
Yeah. She just refuses to accept Boone's money or his mother's money.
Okay, so what I had to look up, this was the first episode that said a special guest star, and I really don't like to look at the cast lists in the beginning because I guess one is kind of a spoiler.
Mm-hmm. But
I remember seeing special guest star, and it said it was the actor who played Boone.
Oh, Ian Somerhalder.
Yeah, I was like, oh yeah. So, but also just for future note, there are certain characters in this show who come and go from the series, but they're still reoccurring. But on certain seasons, they're still considered main cast. And that was kind of, I mean, I think it's a little lame to be called controversial. Mm-hmm. But that was something that was addressed while the show was airing, because, one episode airs and so-and-so's name is on there. Like, well, wait a second. We haven't seen that person forever. Are they coming back? But they're not in that episode. And they're like, oh, so we guess they're coming back at some point, so that's some kind of weird legal thing. So in a way, those credits can be spoilers, but like you don't know when that character's coming back, you know? Let's talk about the beginning, man. Saeed makes them Shannon a cool little tent.
Yeah, that's like a cool little island getaway.
Yeah.
Like on any other island, I'd be like, this is the coolest place. This is the
Yeah.
best thing in the world, but not on Lost.
Nope, because creepy Walt has to barge in.
Uh-huh.
But I love that whole scene between her and Saeed in the beginning. Like, super romantic, super hot. Loved it. It was
Mhm.
great. Chemistry is unmatched. I love those two. But creepy Walt had to come back. Damn it.
Damn it, Walt. Come on.
I'm trying to see how I want to talk about this. Because compared to last week's episode, where it was a Hurley episode, was that Hurley's? No, that was
No, it was Son of Jin.
I just edited the Hurley episode. That's why I was thinking of it.
Gotcha.
But you know, we talked about that. I kind of had issues with that one and how it was a good story, but it didn't really feel. I don't know. I didn't like the balance between that flashback and the island. So I like both storylines, just not together. It was kind of weird. This one is interesting because it's not that they go together, the two storylines, but it really fuels our understanding of Shannon. I don't know how it would do. I kind of wish there was more to it though, on her island stuff. I thought the flashbacks were perfect. All of that was great. Boone showing up. We find out she has really bad relationship with her stepmom. We already knew she was like spoiled, but in these flashbacks we see like, oh, she doesn't really come off as spoiled, just privileged. There's a difference. You know, she isn't super bratty the way we've seen her in the first season and the way we saw her in her the little bit of flashback we get in the Boone episode. So there's a much more innocent side to Shannon in these flashbacks, and we can see, okay, how does she go from this innocence to this monster later, you know?
That's unfair. She's not a monster.
Well, okay, but no, let's be serious. She's a manipulator. And and she's not a good person until she gets to the island and she starts to sort that stuff out. And that's a completely different person than who we're seeing in these flashbacks. So we can tell a lot of stuff happens. Also, I'm not sure her age. She mentions in these flashbacks that she's 18 when her dad dies. So this is young Shannon. I don't know how old she is on the island.
Yeah, I don't know either. There's not like a time frame that we have yet. For when for how old they are and from when like this thing happens to when they get to the island.
We do know it's a couple years because in Boone's flashbacks last season, that like cat and mouse had been going on for years, where like he would have to travel around the world just to find her. She would ask for money, all this stuff, you know, which is another thing too. She comes off very strong in this episode. She's determined. She doesn't want to accept the money. She figures she can do it herself. But last season, that's not Shannon. No, like she's not only willing to ask for money, it comes to a point where she's willing to steal it. She manipulates Boone and fakes this whole scenario just to get his money. So it's like this downward spiral. And when she gets to the island, she starts to like figure herself out. Anyway, I thought it was good. I love that story. I love these flashbacks. I wasn't really sold though on what she was doing on the island though.
Yeah. It's a little, it was a little much to have her just use Vincent, sniff Walt's clothes, and then let's run off into the jungle to find Walt. Like that.
This is not going to end well.
And then it doesn't even go that far because she's running through the jungle maybe 20 seconds and then comes back around to Boone's grave. And then she's just kind of chilling there for a while because now we've got to get to the Rafties and the Tailies, like their story. We got to talk about Locke and Claire and the baby and Charlie. Oh, and then we can come back to Shannon.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
she's
yeah.
still sitting at the grave. And it's like I there's a weird there's a weird thing, and I feel like tangentially speaking about the C plot with Charlie and Claire, I like that stuff, but I do feel like you could have cut that
Yeah.
so that you could give Shannon something better to do, something more to do on the island.
Yeah.
Because like we said, her flashback stuff, that's A plus. Like that is it's great writing. There's great performances coming out of that. And it's furthering this portrait. It is deepening the portrait that is Shannon. But then on the island, she's just sort of like, we're led to believe that it's like, okay, she's really deeply affected by seeing Walt. Can't explain why. Can't explain how he just disappears and keeps showing up. But she needs to find him. And it takes so long to get to a point where her and Saeed can sit down, have a conversation, and Saeed admit, I believe you.
Mm-hmm.
And then it's over. And it's like, well, okay.
Yeah, it took like the whole episode, basically.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's like we could have been talking this out. We could have had the pragmatic Saeed trying to step by step figure this out, or trying to piece together stuff. We could have had Shannon like exploring that depth, exploring that need. Like why does she have to go after Walt?
Yeah.
Because I understand like just seeing like like this kid, and of course her knowing that they found the message of the bottle, the messages in the bottle on the beach. They know something happened to the raft. And so I feel like that should have been a stronger moment. That should have been a space that was explored more. But we didn't get to.
I mean, I understand why they did it, because the whole thing is like, she's right. No one takes her seriously. Even Saeed to a certain extent. I don't know. Just all our mindsets are different now. Here we are in 2021 than it was then in 2006. But even then, like the line where she asks him something about the gun, like, why do you carry the gun or something? He's like, I only carry it because I have someone to protect. It's so interesting, because maybe I'm reading too much into it, or maybe there's actually layers here. I'm in 2021 mindset of like, dude, she could protect herself. But at the same time, like, okay, this is Shannon. She can't. Or she can, but to a certain extent. Not to the same extent that Saeed could, like physically. But two, that also kind of shows like how he sees it. Like, okay, I'm her protector. But I don't know. Even the way he tells her at the end that he believes her, I don't know if he actually does. Like, I believe him when he says he loves her. But when he says, she gives that really cool little talk at the end, and he says, I believe you. I kind of feel like that's his training kicking in, and he's like, this is what's going to get her down, And then once he sees Walt, he's just like stuck. Like his mouth is open. Even when he's trying to chase down Shannon, he's like, doesn't know what's going on. He's it's really the first time we see Saeed kind of freak out, kind of scared, And that's why I'm like, I don't think he actually believed her, which makes the whole ending of this even worse.
Yeah.
So I don't know. Yeah, I think that those certain things were well done. I just wish she had more to do on the island. I really like the fact that she's doing it for Walt. I love that, when she says, she's like, Walt's on this island and he's alone. She's doing all this for this kid, and that's so selfless of her. Yes, man. I wish, because this is only episode 6, So the writers knew this was coming. I wish they had sprinkled in more Shannon and more Shannon Saeed through these first 6 episodes, even just a little bit, you know, because we really haven't seen her do anything until this episode. So I don't know. Let's talk about last thing I want to say about Shannon is that, like, if this was I don't know, I'm assuming, but if this was like done now, she would have that story arc of kind of like where you're saying like she's going to be the one who's going to become the badass or something like that. She's like the Octavia Blake of the group, you know. She's not the one you expect to survive, to come out as the badass, you know, the final girl. And that's something I would have really liked, especially with these flashbacks. You could see how Shannon's story started. And then real quick before we jump to the other side of the island, just talking about that, like the C plot with Charlie and Claire and Locke. I don't know, man. It's really interesting. I'm not liking Charlie in this rewatch.
Yeah.
I'm not. I don't know what that says, like, about me or the mindset or what, but like, he's a fan favorite. Everyone loved him, you know, when the show first came out. Now I'm just like, oh, dude, this just isn't good. It's not healthy, you know. In a lot of ways, it's borderline toxic, if not toxic.
I think there's something to be said about you know, audiences, people latching onto like that hard luck case, you know, that bad boy with a heart of gold. And like that was kind of Charlie for season 1. You know, we saw he was struggling. He was trying unsuccessfully to kick his heroin addiction, and it took Locke being the hard counselor, you know, to sort of say like, you're done, it's over. And to see that be rewarded is like, hey, yeah, like you're clean, it's okay. But everything after that, it is just sort of like it's everything after that initial arc has felt just like a little weird and toxic, you know, kind of to a point where it's like, okay, he's supposed to be best friends with Hurley. Every single time we see him with Hurley, he's kind of chastising Hurley for something, or he's blaming Hurley for something. Anytime he's trying to take control of a situation, he is, you know, like head rushes in, guns blazing, like, no, we've got to go do this. Like no time for thought, no time for strategy. We're going to go do this. And we see him being like fully justified, and that's fine for you as a person, because there are people like that there, and it's okay to have characters like that. But it is just such an odd thing to just be watching, and I'm really finding a hard time finding something to latch onto for Charlie, and something to, you know, even as in like a redeemable way. We've seen Sawyer be a very crass, very careless, very selfish, loathsome person. And we've seen Kate be very manipulative. We've seen Shannon be very manipulative, you know? And yet there are all of these other moments where we can point to where it's like, this is true. They also have been doing this. So it's not all the time. And I don't find that with Charlie. I do just find like a lot of his stuff is just him. Like that, like that's just who he is. And I don't know, that maybe I just don't like that.
Yeah. And I like what she was telling Locke. Claire was telling Locke. She was saying how she's like, if you think about it, we're strangers. We don't really know each other, but we feel like we're parenting this child together. And I love how John kind of calls him out on it. That's their last scene, where, because he's saying, he's like, you know, she just needs more experience, being a mother and learning. And he's like, that's an interesting perspective from a heroin addict. And Charlie like stops, and you're like, oh, he's like, recovering addict. It's like, oh, of course. Because now Claire reveals to Locke that Charlie has one of the Virgin Mary statues, which Locke already knows there's drugs in there. So that's a cool little setup. That's little seeds to something that's going to pay off at some point. But yeah, I like that Locke called him out on that, and he kind of
Mhm.
stopped to think because he's like, one, ouch, that hurts. I'm recovering, but there's also that guilty feeling like I do have more drugs, you know,
Mhm.
and also like you have to keep in mind like you might not be the best person to be giving parenting advices either. So
Mhm.
yeah. I liked the scene though. It was so subtle with Locke though, where Claire asks if he wants to carry the baby, and he's
Mhm.
like, "No, no, I'm fine." She's like, "Yeah, here," and he looks nervous, you know.
Mhm.
What it looked like is like he had never carried a baby before.
Mhm.
I thought that was the cutest, sweetest moment. And there could be a number of reasons why Locke feels that way. Maybe he actually hasn't carried a baby before. Yeah, I love that. And even when he smells, he's like, he smells good. It's just a cool little moment that's detailed. It has so much in there, and we don't know what. You know, you could attribute it to anything. We'll find out something about Locke down the way, and you're like, oh, that's why he felt that way
Mhm.
about carrying the baby. You know, or vice versa. I don't know.
It's a good show. Yeah, speaking of part of what makes this a good show, the B plot, the tailies and the rafties cutting through the jungle.
In a lot of ways, I felt like this was almost the A plot because they focused. I I I think they focused a lot more on that group on the island than they did Shannon, and I think that's kind of why the pacing felt weird. Because
Mhm.
Shannon was the majority of the episode, but I think that had to do with her flashbacks. Her
Mhm.
actual stuff on the island wasn't really that much. It was good, but it wasn't that much. And I think
Yeah.
that's why things are thrown off. Because we saw a lot more of Anna Lucia in the group hauling Sawyer's ass through the jungle.
Mhm.
But I love that. I love that whole scene. The adventure music came back. We see the Rafties and the Tailies working together to save
Mhm.
him. Like, dude, yes.
Mhm. Let's talk a second for just like Mr. Echo's crafting skills because Michael just asks him to make, like a gurney.
That was a killer
That
contraption he
was
made there.
Yeah, that was killer. I was like, wow, you netted that.
Yeah.
I don't know how long they've been in that part of the jungle,
Hmm.
but that was pretty quick. It was instantaneous for us. Like they go off to get the thing. Next scene, boom, they're carrying it, and it's a very
Yeah.
I would like to be carried in that. Is what I'm saying.
Yeah. Yeah.
I would feel safe being carried in that. This whole like I'm living this side of season 2. I really like having this other group who are more hardened, who are more world weary, who are just very frightened and afraid because as bad as you know the whole situation is bad. We can say that. But I feel like it hasn't been as bad for the other group, for the group that we've been seeing. We have seen them had to, we got to figure stuff out. We have to figure out how to do surgery on an island that doesn't have anything. We have Jack's whole quandary about Boone. Like, do we give him more medicine, like, or do we just let him die? Things like that. Like, and there's so many different things. The whole season finale, but again, it kind of feels like the community thing where it's like we're following this group of people and everything crazy happens to them, and then sometimes we get the side characters being like, you remember that one week where they weren't here? Oh yeah, that was good.
Hmm.
And so this time we have a whole other group where it's like it feels like they've struggled since minute one, not just from the fact that they lived through this traumatic experience of surviving a plane crash, but they've been hunted. It seems like they have been
Yeah.
hunted and picked off.
That's what they straight up said. Anna Lucia says
Mm-hmm.
night one on the island, the others attacked.
Mm-hmm.
They took 3 of them, and then 2 weeks passed, and they came back and took another 9. So
Mm-hmm.
they've been slowly hunted this entire time. Again, it goes back to further strengthen our comparison Battlestar Galactica. Like,
Yeah.
with the 2 ships, the 2 crews, like, yeah, this is very similar. And then the way this episode ends is also in a way similar too, because it's like, oh crap, these groups are starting to come together now. What's going to be the fallout of this?
Mm-hmm.
Mr. Echo, dude, he's just a good guy. He's putting everyone's life at risk to save Sawyer.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, man, I love it. But of course, in the process and in the team up, we lose Cindy.
Yeah.
Do you recognize Cindy? Do you know who that is? She was the stewardess. We saw her probably like in the first episode and maybe the season finale.
Oh,
Yeah, she's the one who
okay.
hooks Jack up with the drinks.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, that's right. Okay. That's cool.
So now, like, the group's even smaller because we got Ana Lucia, Echo, Bernard, and Libby. That's it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And they asked because Mr. Echo says he saw the others. And Cindy asks, did you see the kids?
Mm-hmm.
All right. So we also know there were kids and now there are not. So,
and I
it's
love,
creepy.
I love that moment between Michael and Ana Lucia where, Michael has to say, like, if we're going to keep following you and you're going to tell us to shut up, you're going to tell me why I have to.
Right.
And then she lays it out for them, like this is what happened to us. So we are going to keep moving hell or high water. And then the thing that's been carrying Michael and the thing that has been sort of giving him, power in these situations, at least amongst the people that know him, is that they took my son. And when he says that, you can see that same conviction that he's been carrying. And you can see Ana Lucia like connect and then internalize and just spit out, we've all lost some things. They've all taken some things.
They've all taken something.
Or they've taken things from all of us.
Yeah,
like
that.
Just
the line
that
they've taken a lot of things. Something like that.
There you go. They've taken a lot of things where it's like, dude, that's your biggest struggle right now. Like, we have it worse.
Yeah.
And we're not afraid to tell you that we've had it worse.
Mm-hmm.
And they just have to keep going. It's such a, it's kind of a trauma response, to that, this is the greatest struggle that you've faced. Right. And you're facing it still.
Mm-hmm.
We can't afford to keep looking back at that because we've lost a lot. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
It's going to be interesting to see what happens when the two groups meet because Ana Lucia has always been in charge and she seems like the person who has to be in charge. Granted, a lot of that's probably also fueled for whatever they've gone through. So what's going to happen when they meet 40 other survivors? None of them are going to listen to her, especially after the way this episode ends. But I like the little moments. I like when Sawyer says, Michael and Walt, that's not his problem. Michael shows up and he heard the whole thing.
Mm-hmm.
But Jin and Michael, they're not giving up on Sawyer. And I like that when he's passing out. And he even tells him, he's like, I would have left you behind.
Mm-hmm.
And then he says, I did leave you behind. And like, that's the last thing he says before he passes out.
Mm-hmm.
And then even Michael says, he's like, well, good thing I'm not you. But you could tell like there's a guilt there to Sawyer.
Yeah.
I don't think they mentioned it, but I assume they told the tell section that they got a doctor. Because it's like, this guy's dying. Why else are we taking him across the island? Like, we got a doctor.
Yeah.
A surgeon,
Yeah, like, I don't know. Like, that's one of the things that I'm thinking. I'm like, we could have at least like dressed Sawyer's wound because it's just been out there.
I feel like Mr. Echo would know how to do something, right? Like,
yeah, heck, like a flight attendant would know some form of first aid, even if it's just for a cut. It's like, if you have a cut, you're supposed to like, you take care of it. You put something on it, to stop the bleeding, to stop whatever. Sawyer's not bleeding right now, but his wound is just exposed to everything.
Yeah.
So it's like that's been getting to me like ever since they've gone with the group and said like, oh yeah, we're from the other section of the plane. It's like, cool. Can you help this man?
Yeah,
I know he's an asshole, but like, come on, like put something.
They keep bitching and whining that he's slowing them down. I'm like, well, fix it.
Yeah. me, day one, if I was with the Rafties when that had happened, I would have been like, okay, like I tear off a portion of my shirt and I put it onto, Sawyer's wound. I tear off something else. And then, it's a makeshift bandage.
Just
We're
try
going
to
to
keep
have
it
to
dry
change
at
it.
the
But
least.
yeah, and keep it away, like keep it unexposed to things,
Yeah.
So yeah, like that. Like, yeah, of course this man passed out. Nobody did anything. He didn't do anything to his arm for, who knows how long.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Ay, ay, ay.
Come on. Simple first aid, people.
The episode ends where they're being hunted by the others. Saeed and Shannon are chasing creepy Walt.
Mhm.
And there's a gunshot. Shannon goes down, and Saeed looks up and he sees Ana Lucia with the gun and the tailies and his old friends. And like that's the first, I mean, technically it's only been a couple days since they left.
Mhm.
But in real world time, that was months for us watching. That was months for the actors filming it and stuff,
Mhm.
It's I think it's going to, this is kind of a changing moment for the show, just because those two groups at the end of this episode, they're one. Even if they're not with the main group yet, like they've made contact,
Mhm.
and this was their first contact. This is how they did it, Oh
Mhm.
crap, by shooting one of them. So I think things going forward are gonna be different. So
Yes.
technically this
Very.
is episode 6, so we're quarter ways into the season.
Oh wow. Yeah.
I guess with that in mind, let's do predictions first, because I wonder what do you think, what's going to happen after this setup for the show, these first 6 episodes, what's coming, what's coming up. Also, which side note, we haven't seen the Hatch in a couple episodes.
Yeah, it's been about like 2. I think this is like the third
2 or
episode we haven't
third,
seen
second or
it.
third, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, Hurley mentioned it to Rose. Fan favorites, Hurley and Rose. They had a quick scene in this episode, and Rose is like, "Yeah, I don't like the Hatch." Like, yeah, no, that makes I feel you on
And
that.
I'm like, okay, if Rose says so, I guess it's
Mhm.
true.
I'm with it.
I think this is where it also gets interesting with the pacing, because most of the time with Lost, you have an A plot, usually a smaller B plot, but then you have
Mhm.
scenes. You have all these like other scenes in between with
Mhm.
characters interacting, and those A and B plots usually come into a scene, or whatever they weave through. But there's all these other character scenes. This one there really wasn't.
Mhm.
Because even the Hurley and Rose scene that ties into Shannon's story, because she goes to talk to them.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I thought that was really interesting. There was no fluff. I guess you could have changed like the Charlie stuff to another episode, but like, that's your choice.
Yeah.
But even then, like, we didn't see Jack. We saw him in a quick flashback in the background.
Mhm.
But like this, like, we didn't really get any sense of what else is going on the island or anything like that. We didn't see any Kate. So
Mhm.
yeah, I just thought that was interesting. This whole episode is really just 2 storylines, which is Shannon's and then the tail section people.
Mhm.
And then I guess Locke. I guess he's like the C plot. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh. Anyway, back to predictions.
Yeah, like, oh, okay. Yeah, as let's see. As far as predictions go, obviously this is good. This is going to be a big point of contention. Like I think most of the Rafties are going to be well accepted into the group, but I do obviously think that Ana Lucia is going to be the outlier and you know just sort of pushed to the back. Also, I think there's going to be some sparks rekindling between Jack and Ana Lucia.
Mm,
Mhm.
interesting.
And then that's going to be like the new, what do we call it the same? The rumbus, the love rumbus.
Oh yeah.
You between like Sawyer, Ana Lucia, Jack, and Kate.
Mm-hmm.
So there's definitely gonna be that. Yeah. Like I don't really know, because like I don't want Shannon to be dead.
Yeah.
All signs point to her being dead until I get the confirmation in the next episode that she's dead. Then I'll accept it. But right now, I'm living in the ignorance of like, I think Shannon's alive. We're going to find out more about Walt's creepy psychic powers. I get Saeed has to tell Michael at some point. I'm assuming that
He saw his kid out there.
Yeah, he and Shannon saw Walt.
Yeah.
And Shannon had been seeing him for like the last couple of days.
Possibly.
Yeah.
Saeed's kind of preoccupied at the moment, but I imagine he would have to bring it up.
Yeah. Yeah. Because I don't think Saeed, at least just from what we've seen, like I don't know that Saeed would blame Michael for any of this, blame any of the Rafties for any of this. But
other than the one with the gun.
Yeah, other than the one with the gun. But also we've also never seen Saeed in the midst of like holding his dead lover, losing somebody this important to him.
Mm-hmm.
So right now, we have no idea what Saeed's capable of. I think Saeed's going to take a slightly darker path now.
Man, if it wasn't dark enough, right?
Mm-hmm.
Well, I mean, that's kind of his whole story. He's always been trying to get away from his past.
That's the thing about the island. The island loves to keep bringing the past at you.
Yeah, dude, it gives and takes. We've talked about that,
Mm-hmm.
Jeez. Okay, so not predictions. MVPs.
Yeah, like this one's interesting. Because again, I feel like everybody's giving like really great performances. But I'm gonna keep it real, and I'm gonna give it to Shannon.
Yeah.
Man,
I don't know who else did. I feel like no one else really stood out enough.
Mm-hmm.
I guess you could say. Well, I don't know. I think we're just gonna have a solo MVP this week. Have we done that? Have we had a solo one?
I don't think so.
Because I know we've had multiple and we've done groups, but I don't think we've had solo before.
Yeah, because I mean, usually you make the case. You're like, yeah, okay, I will also give it to, and it's the same person.
That's rare because I like to have two.
Well, yeah,
I like to balance it. Usually I agree with you and I tell you what was my other choice.
Mm-hmm.
So I usually have two, but this one is like, no, I really think Maggie Grace was everyone did a great job, but she's the only one who actually had enough material and was impressive enough with it,
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Well, solo. Okay. It's a solo MVP this time. Good for her. Maggie Grace, who I believe she just had her first kid this past year.
Oh,
she's currently on Fear the Walking Dead.
Nice. Very nice.
Well, Sam, I'm pretty sure we will have every single answer to our questions answered next time. Not really. Probably not.
Probably not.
Especially since the next episode is season 2, episode 7, The Other 48 Days.
Ooh.
In which Oceanic Flight 815 crash lands on an island, and the survivors from the tail section must band together and figure out how to survive. I'm sure everything's going to be fine.
It's all going to work out, and we're going to have a happy ending.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, totally.
Yeah. Because when has Lost ever given us anything else?
Right. So, well, all right, guys. Thank you for joining us once more. Doing this show just lifts my spirit. And even though my voice isn't completely back, I actually feel a lot better than I did before this episode started.
See? And that's the power of Lost.
I've been found. Yeah, so I've been doing some podcast research, and it looks like the best way to help us is to rate the show. I mean, it helps if you review it, but it's really those stars, man. Those are on Apple Podcast. Mm-hmm. Give us a stars, preferably 5, but we'll take any. Those stars, that's really what kind of pushes podcasts into the rankings or whatever they call it. I don't know.
Yeah.
But that's what helps. It's those stars. And then, of course, reviewing. But statistically speaking, share it with everyone so everyone can give us stars. If everyone rated us at 1 star, we would have a lot of stars, Sam. We'd be a 1.0 show.
Wow. Hey, that's better than nothing.
That's better than no stars. Oh, man. Yeah, so as always, hit us up at the hashtag Lost Legacies. You can find me at Twitter at _Matt Jimenez. And what's the other one? Instagram at Holy Hand Grenade of Antioch.
And you can find me on Twitter and Instagram at Reel, that's REEL, Texas Weirdo.
Sweet. All right, guys. Until next time, get lost.
Get lost.